Live on Instagram. What's up, everybody? Aristotle Full Throttle here. And we're talking about movies every day at noon Pacific Standard Time. AristotleFullThrottle.com. Follow me on the Instagram at Aristotle Full Throttle. Follow me. I mean, obviously, you're following me already on Instagram. What's up, Mark Denson? Aristotle Full Throttle here. We're ready to shoot out of a cannon and start talking about movies, physics, movie physics, and how sometimes movie physics is terrible. It's terrible. You ever watch a movie and you're like, wait a second, how come he's like flying? Like, for instance, the trailer for Mission Impossible 3, I'll never get it out of my head. There's a shot where you got Tom Cruise running. He's running away from like a missile attack, and the missile blows up behind him, but he flies sideways. And you can see this every single time in the trailer. I cannot get over it. It's crazy. Hey, everybody. Welcome. I'm letting everybody trickle into the room so we can start chatting. We got our usuals usually. That's why they're usuals. But what's up, Mark Denson? What's your favorite movie that has insane amounts of physics? And we're not just talking about physics. We're talking about science also. Hey, Scrawny Johnny. Hey, yo. How you doing? Aristotle Full Throttle here. I'm talking about movie science and bad movie science. I watched that movie Gravity, and I was like, come on now. How come you going to be out in space, floating around, and then landing on every single space station? Those space stations are like thousands of miles apart, in different orbits even, but she jumping from one to the next. I like the idea, however, it's very unrealistic. That's why they're making a movie. Hey, Ernie, how are you? How you holding up in this corona situation? I hope you're staying safe. I know you're staying safe, but there's some people out there, I'll tell you, they have ill regard for their fellow human, and they're just out there doing whatever they want. I see them right outside my window. I actually have a street view on my window, and it fluctuates. I sometimes see people wearing their mask. I sometimes see people not wearing their mask. But you should wear a mask. Protect other people. Minority Report, Mark Denson. Edge of Tomorrow. That's a good one. These are all Tom Cruise movies, too, I'm noticing. They're going to make a sequel to Edge of Tomorrow. I love Edge of Tomorrow because it's just fun. It's actually, to me, it feels like the first video game movie. You know how they always have a problem making a video game into a movie? And how that's just been a problem over the decades, generally because there's a guy named, I think, Yui Boll or something, and he's like this Danish or some vaguely European dude who buys up all the rights to video games and then turns them into terrible movies. But there's a way. There's always a way to tell a good story, to make a good movie. Just ask Ernie. Ernie knows for sure. There's always a way to tell a story in an intriguing, compelling way. No matter what the story, you gotta add to it. You gotta figure out an angle for it. Edge of Tomorrow is fun. It's literally a movie about respawning, getting a second chance. It's Groundhog Day, but you know the fate of the world is at stake, and I like the idea of the frustration of starting over at the beginning of a level. After he always had to start at the same place, and then it's like finding the easiest and most efficient ways to get from A to Z without getting killed every time, like Tom Cruise does in that movie. It's good. They're making a sequel. I'm looking forward to Edge of Tomorrow. I think they retitled it Live, Die, Repeat, I think. It's one of those movies that came out in the theater and then they retitled it later because it was hard to get people to really conceptualize Edge of Tomorrow with the simple description, live, die, repeat. Yeah, Mark, I kind of was watching that movie, and it just occurred to me when I was watching. I'm like, oh, it's like when you mess up on the level, and then you got to restart again. You've got to restart your level, but it's got to get frustrating dying every single day for however many days. I bet you can count up the days that Tom Cruise has to do that thing and be in the right place at the right time every time. It's kind of like music. See, I play music a lot, and in a live performance, you might get to a part that's challenging, And every night you're going to get to that same spot and you're like, am I going to get this right? Am I going to play this right? Am I going to nail it? And sometimes you nail it. Sometimes you make it all the way through the set with only about 3 or 4 mistakes. I think my best set ever is about 4 mistakes. Because, people are human, and that's the beauty of live performance. I'll watch bands, and I could tell that you could see they have that mentality of like, oh, we better not mess up tonight. I've seen bands live where you're just feeling like, I'm recycling the chat room on YouTube. I'm also streaming live on YouTube, guys, because I want to see if people are chatting there. AristotleFullThrottle.com. Yeah, but there's times where you get to the same, you're just living your life over and over again every night when you're doing a show every night, playing music or in a musical. And it's live, die, repeat. It's live or die. Maybe there's a theme going on here. Maybe we could put a theme together by the end of today's show. But I'm talking about bad science or good science in movies. Movies that get the physics right and movies that get the physics wrong. Or movies that just totally disregard physics, and that's okay too. Or just the science. My favorite thing, and I mentioned this yesterday, and it's like my favorite thing to not like, it's whenever there's a movie and they try to demonstrate what it's like to go through a wormhole. Here, I'll use this piece of paper. I'll recycle this. I used this before, guys. I don't know if you could read this, but I made an example of this was the craziest marquee I've ever seen. When I was walking down the street one day, I looked up. I go to the movies a lot. I like movies. That's what we're talking about. And I read this one time. I took a picture of it somewhere. I got to find it. This was on the marquee of a movie, of a cinema. This is what it said. Harry Potter 7 Part 2. It looks like a frickin' physics equation. This looks like science. It's just math. It's just Harry Potter 7 Part 2. And that's how they must have run out of letters, or that person was really bored that day and did not want to complete all those Deathly Hollows. This is my favorite example of how people try to describe a wormhole in movies. They go like this. Let's say you're at this point in space and you want to get all the way over to this point in space. What you got to do is just fold space and stab space. Just kill space. Or something. I don't know. I'm not a physicist, but I'm pretty sure that that's how they do it in movies. And that explains it to the audience, because the audience, we're dumb. We don't know anything. I used to think that audiences were smarter and knew better, and you could treat audiences better and be like, hey guys, let's we all understand a basic amount of science. We have a basic understanding and comprehension of how science works, so we could just go ahead with certain things real quickly and easily. Ooh, look, I got stuff in my hair. That's fun. But the problem is we don't know anything about science. If I just look out my window, people not wearing their masks. Guys, this should be an indicator. Here's a perfect example. When you go to the veterinarian's office right now during the corona times, when you go to the doctor's office right now, do you notice how they have gloved up, mask, their whole area, their mucosal membranes are all covered, their eyes are covered, everything's covered. And then they're like, hand me the cat through the door so that I can bring it into the vet's office. You cannot come inside. Do you realize why they are so stringent on their rules, why they're so strict? It's because they know, they have an understanding of how contagious the coronavirus is. They have an understanding of how science works. They have a working knowledge of it, so they're actually taking the appropriate measures. However, people on the street, they're just going to be like, with their mask on, they're like this. They're like, oh, hey, Joe, how's it going? Oh, yeah, we're just quarantining. Anyway, see you later. And then they cover their mask and then they walk away. And you're just like, you guys just totally missed the whole point there. You guys, it's like walking around with a condom on and taking it off to have sex. Thank you. At Aristotle Full Throttle, we pledge to educate the public and encourage critical thinking and empathy. That's what we want in this world. We need more critical thinking. But yeah. Thanks, Mark, for showing up. I appreciate you. Remember to go over to AristotleFullThrottle.com and subscribe, because I'm going to have a giveaway. You're going to win a video game, guys. Video game console, PS5 probably. When I get to 10,000 subscribers, guys, check it out. I'm going to give away a PS5 probably, because it'll be out by then. But just subscribe, comment. If you comment on the videos, that qualifies you to win. Movie physics. Why is it so important that Marty McFly drive at 88 miles per hour? I mean, it seems pretty legit if you ask me. You got a flux capacitor, and in order to power the flux capacitor, you need plutonium. And if you got plutonium and you're powering the flux capacitor, obviously you got to drive at 88 miles per hour in order to go back in time. I think that that's a phenomenal idea. Hey, over there on YouTube, remember to like the video. And if you're on Instagram, you could tap the screen and like the feed. I don't know. Oh, I flipped it around. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, guys. That's silly. All right. There we go. I was trying to tap my own screen on my phone to make sure that to see if I could like my own video, but can't do that apparently. Remember the movie Gravity? There was lots of gravity in that. It was pretty cool when Sandra Bullock was floating around in space and she was like flying and she was flipping around and she's like, uh-oh, I just can't right myself. And that's true. If you was flipping around in space like that, there'd be really no way to stop yourself. You'd have to, because there's no friction, you would need to exert a force. You would need to throw something. Like you would need to throw a hammer. There's that famous experiment. Well, the famous experiment is if you sit on a skateboard and you turn on a fire extinguisher, you'll fly backwards. That's basically what happens in space. So you need to have a force go the equal and opposite other direction. So if you throw a hammer, if you like push a hammer off, like a 10-pound hammer, it's basically like putting 10 pounds of force on you, equal and opposite. It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat, you know, how those physics work. They got physics everywhere. There's so many physics. It's like all the maths. Now, let me tell you something, guys. Battlestar Galactica, that was a fun show. You ever watch that show? Yeah, I watched the heck out of that show. Good news is, Katie Sackhoff, who played Starbucks, she got cast as the live-action version of Bo-Katan in The Mandalorian, guys. Check this out. Mandalorian's coming out. Katie Sackhoff going to play the character that she voices. That's how dope The Mandalorian is getting. People know, Disney knows that The Mandalorian is where everything's at. They got Baby Yoda cracking, and they're going to cash in on that Baby Yoda. So they better make that show good. I'm telling you something right now. I have a demand for you, Disney. You better start making some good stuff from Star Wars instead of what you've been doing with the Star Wars movies, because those Star Wars movies ain't good. Not these new ones, anyway. Maybe The Force Awakens was fun. Last Jedi is actually a good movie, but people don't like it in the series. If you just watched The Last Jedi out of nowhere, you would say that was a good movie. But people think it's not a good Star Wars movie. What's up, Pinder? Waving to you. So we got a quiet day today, man. It's a little bit overcast here in LA, but don't worry. It'll all burn off by the afternoon. That's what everyone always says. Whenever you see a cloud in the sky in Los Angeles, people say, don't worry, it'll all burn off by the afternoon. Some clouds this morning. It'll all burn off by 2. People say this, they burn off. That's what they say, burn off. You don't burn clouds. They just dissipate, I suppose. What's up, the Popcorn Passport? WWE wrestler Sasha Banks will be on The Mandalorian. Oh, dope. They got some casting going on over there. I'm excited. Popcorn Passport just informed me that wrestler Sasha Banks going to be on The Mandalorian. Of course, they already have UFC fighter on that show, and she's dope. I like that fight she had with the Mandalorian and the Baby Yoda just sitting there sipping his tea, sipping his bone marrow soup or his bone broth. He like this. This Baby Yoda watching them fight. That's the meme of the decade, I tell you. That Baby Yoda meme right there of him sipping that bone broth has been me all coronavirus. Just watching the world fall apart. That GIF is life right there. I'm gonna tell you that for sure. Popcorn Passport, thank you for joining us today. Remember to like the video on YouTube. Remember to share these live streams every day at noon, AristotleFullThrottle.com. That's what we talk about. We're going to build it up, guys. We're going to build it up. It's going to be... TikTok can go tick attack. TikTok ain't worth a tic-tac. Actually, I'm on TikTok also. You can follow me at AristotleFull. I think throttle, but without the E at the end because they don't give me enough letters. They don't give me enough characters. I think it's just Aristotle Throttle. TikTok. Right now it's music, but I'm gonna put some gangster rap on there pretty soon. You guys are gonna laugh. I was cracking myself up the other day, just rapping about all kinds of things. My new album drops in like 20 minutes. My new album. The albums are all one take. Each song takes one take, and you know, I have a whole career that lasted an afternoon, basically. Movie physics, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're talking about. Fred Sewers Company. That's a cool name. What kind of sewers do you got? Back to the Future has got all the physics you need. I love that Marty McFly and the science in that. Marty McFly, how many times did he get hit on the head in that movie? In those 3 movies? Actually, all Back to the Futures that take place all in about 2 weeks. The entire Back to the Future series takes place over the course of 2 weeks. 2 weeks? 2 weeks? 2 weeks? My head's gonna come apart. Zzz, 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 zzz. Popcorn Passport got that reference. Yeah, guess what? Marty McFly gets concussed. He gets hit over the head at least 3 times. He loses consciousness 3 times in 3 weeks. He's going to have traumatic brain injury. He's going to grow up to be like a rage monster, like a roid rage guy. I guess he becomes a rock and roll star. You know, we never seen what happened to Marty McFly. They should make Back to the Future 4 where he's like a superstar. I just watched Josh Gad reunite the cast of Back to the Future. And I gotta say, I was a little bit misty-eyed. I was like, oh, look at those people. Those are our favorites from back in the day when we used to watch Back to the Future every single day all summer. Every summer. Not that I did that, but I definitely did that. The bomb blows up and the shock wave carries a person. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Bomb blows up and the shockwave carries a person. Yeah, does that ever happen? I was just talking about that Popcorn Passport. Do you remember the beginning? Do you remember that explosion in Mission Impossible 3? Mission Impossible 3 starring, I call him Seymour Philip Hoffman. Also, it's directed by J.J. Abrams, but there's a very famous shot where there's like a missile and it blows up directly behind Tom Cruise, but he flies sideways into a car. And the physics of that, just the visual of that, has always disturbed me because it looks so fake. Just when something blows up behind you and you fly sideways into a car, it's just, I don't know. There's just like there's no thought put behind that. But then I love when movies take the physics just out of control and they're so zany and bonkers, and they create their own physics. Like for instance, the Matrix movies, the Matrices. Those are fun because there's no physics involved. They're inside of a made up world. And they just, yeah, like Tom Cruise. They're inside of a made up world where physics doesn't matter and you could just bend there is no spoon. You could bend the spoon. Bend the spoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is your world. You have full control over your own actions, hopefully, unless you're psychotic, then you have no other excuse. So that's what we should do. We should be very mindful of our own behavior and how we interact with others, and be sure that we're kind and courteous and respectful of maybe 6 feet, 6 feet between us. We can do that. It's easy. Cover your mouth and nose and stay 6 feet away. It's very simple. And just, if you think it's silly, then, stay home. Stay home and we'll hang out. I'm going to get you that PS5. Go over to AristotleFullThrottle.com and sign up, and I'll get you that PS5. That's not bribery at all. It's a giveaway. You can qualify to win if you leave a comment on lots of videos. Keep leaving comments all day long. Leave those comments. I'll reply. And I'll take note of who's leaving the most comments and who's being the most solid Aristotle Full Throttler. If you're a viewer of Aristotle Full Throttle, on more than one occasion, you are officially a throttler. You've been inducted into the club, and I appreciate you. I enjoy this every day. This is a really, really great, fun time and aspect of something I've always enjoyed doing, which is just kind of sharing in ideas, listening to you guys, hearing what you have to say about movies, because it's really fun and intriguing to share your excitement about a thing. This is a jury-rigged situation right here. I actually have the microphone for my live feed right here on my headphones so you could hear me clear, because it used to be like a hiss, because my camera is right by my computer, and you could hear the hiss. But when a guy goes crazy in a tough fight, after the fight he wins, then he's okay, no hospital or even a Band-Aid. That's so true, man. Oh my God, Popcorn Passport, you just hit the nail on the head. It's so funny when you watch that in a movie. Like one scene, they're breaking their elbows, they're breaking their knuckles, they're all scripted. Listen, I got hit by a car once, right? I got hit by a car. I was okay. I got up. I lived to tell the story. I'm telling the story right now. I was running, and then the car was coming around the corner, and I turned around. It was all his fault, 100%. And he made a left turn right into me. Boom. But I saw the car out of the corner of my eye, and I jumped up at the last second. So I was like, because I could think, I was like, I can't make it out of the way either direction. I don't have enough time. There's not enough time. So I jumped, and the physics, I did like a flip. I landed on my face. I got stitches in my face and like knocked part of my tooth out. You can't see it because I got a crown on it right there. Knocked my tooth out, landed on my face. And I was kaput. I was out. I was like sore. My hands looked like chopped liver. My face was cut up. I was bleeding. I was not good. My wrist hurt for a year because I landed on my wrist and my hands and my ankle. And it just hurt. I was aching. I was kind of like a delicate little flower, and I almost died. But I didn't almost die. I was fine. The point I'm trying to make is Popcorn Passport. Exactly. You watch a guy in a movie, they get hit by a car, and then they're freaking, hey, what's up, Tristan? Thank you for joining us, Tristan and Swedish Moon. I was just talking about the physics of movies and the Popcorn Passport. That's their screen name. They're over there on YouTube asking the question or pointing out the fact that sometimes in movies there's a crazy fight, or like I'm saying, someone gets hit by a car in a movie and then they get up and then they keep fighting, or like the next day they're totally fine, or they get into like a severe battle, fisticuffs, and then the next day they're just totally fine. I love Die Hard though, because Die Hard you could see all the pain adding up over time when you're watching that movie. When Bruce Willis, he's getting more and more beat up. He's getting cut up. He's like, by the end of the movie, he's like, I can barely move. It's pretty great. He's like limping, and he's like, Hans, 1, 2. He does a double tap, as it were. Well, now just a single tap on 2 people. But it's funny you bring up that fight, because right now Jeff Goldblum is trending on Twitter. And the reason why Jeff Goldblum is trending on Twitter, because there's this crazy infamous fight that just broke out. It's the latest trend. It's a big meme going around right now. But there's a fight between this tall, skinny dude, Jeff Goldblum looking MFer, and and some dude who looks like he should be in like an 80s punk rock band. But he's like 30 years old. He looks like he was in like an 80s skinhead punk rock band. And now he's just an old dude. Older dude. I mean, the guy seems like he can handle himself. However, he did not handle himself well against this Jeff Goldblum looking guy. If you go on Twitter, you'll see what I'm talking about. This guy gets his ass beat. And the Jeff Goldblum dude, like, he like taps a couple of them ribs on the side of this dude. He cracks him on purpose too. It's that's the part that I get a little disturbed by, is that the dude, by the end of this fight, if you watch it, it's about 30 seconds. Most fights last about 30 seconds between two human beings. They won't last more than 20 to 30 seconds. This is usually the average fight time. And but this Jeff Goldblum dude, he's like tall and Jack Skellington looking, and he come up to the punk rock dude, and he's got these like kung fu stances. He's doing all this taekwondo stuff. He looking like Bruce Lee. He coming in, he's like entering the dragon, while the other dude is like, oh, dude, he's like singing freaking Sex Pistols songs. In my head, anyway, just looking at him, he looks like a dude who listens to the Sex Pistols. But apparently, the shirtless dude in that video, if you're watching the Jeff Goldblum fight, apparently that dude was disparaging toward women, and the Jeff Goldblum guy called him out on it. And then the punk rock dude tried to fight him and swung at him. And then Jeff Goldblum unleashed freaking Mortal Kombat 11 on this dude. It's crazy. It's a crazy battle. I'm just talking about the physics of that fight. But anyway, Jeff Goldblum won. The fight lasts 30 seconds, and he broke this dude's ribs. I just kept hearing the Baby Back Rib song in my head when I saw that. And this dude kind of like walks away, but he had his back turned at the end when Jeff Goldblum kicked him in the ribs. He had his back turned, so I'm a little bit against that. But then I was thinking, Jeff Goldblum had his glasses knocked off his face, so maybe he still saw him as a threat because he couldn't see. Maybe he's got like that scene in Kickboxer where he's like blind, where Jean-Claude Van Damme can't see anything. You know, he's blind. I think maybe Jeff Goldblum was like, I can't see. Let me neutralize the threat and give him one last little love tap to the ribs. He broke like 3 ribs on this dude. Easy. Oof. Sorry. It was the first thing I saw this morning. Sorry. It was the first thing I saw this morning, so it stuck with me. I'm getting into that fight. But Marty McFly gets into so much fights in like 3 weeks and survives, guys. He gets 3 concussions. He gets knocked out and wakes up from a concussion 3 times. One time back in 1955, one time in the alternate 1985, and one time in 1885. Oh, Jeff Goldblum is doing the voiceover? Yeah, dude. Popcorn Passport is just updating himself right now on that Jeff Goldblum trend. Right? It's a crazy fight, man. I tell you, the one guy just gets tapped right on the ribs, and you can you just hear the slap, and you're not sure if it's a slap or just 3 ribs cracking, but it makes you just go, I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. Yeah, he does a spin kick. He does a roundhouse, and he does a spinning heel kick to the dude's freaking face, and it's so quick that's the moment that the punk rock dude knew he was in over his head. Especially when his foot flew over his head. What's up, Dooney? We just talking about the Jeff Goldblum fight that's on Twitter right now. It's not really Jeff Goldblum. Have you seen the Spectacular Spider-Man? This is what Tristan's asking. If not, then I strongly highly recommend you watch the show. Trust me, it's a trillion times better than the MCU has brought us with Spider-Man. Oh, I can't wait. Spider-Man is my favorite. I'm going to put that on my list. That's probably on Disney Plus, am I right? I've been watching some of those animated series because I grew up watching those the X-Men animated series when I was a kid, and also watching Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends with Stan Lee narrating. What is Spider-Man going to do next? It was great. Every friggin' commercial break, he's like, "Oh no, our heroes are in for it." So fun. It was fun listening to growing up with Stan Lee. Catch me up to Gingerbread Man, yeah. I'll tell you. But that fight on that Jeff Goldblum fight is crazy. I'll tell you. You know, I kind of felt bad for the punk rock dude because he was like, all right, I give up. And then he still got one. And then he still got 3 broken ribs moments later. He could have just had a broken nose, but he asked to surrender. He surrendered with his back turned. So that's the moment where I'm like, uh-oh. That's when you walk away and say, okay, you learned your lesson. But I think at the same time, it's right on that edge of like, Jeff Goldblum lost his glasses, so maybe he can't quite tell. He just sees this guy's hand in the air, and you can see that he can't see him too good. And then he just neutralizes the dude by kicking him in the rib. Oh, it's not on Disney Plus. Where can I see that then? The Spectacular Spider-Man. I guess I'll have to legally and safely download that. I don't know. Screw it. I'm not in anybody's pocket. Find it however you can. It's on the internet somewhere, guys. I don't care. The TV series. Oh man, I might have seen this. Yeah. When was this on? Oh yeah. I watched some of this back in the day. It's been a while because there have been a lot of different types of Spider-Man series. Why do you think Spider-Man has lasted this long? I liked the physics and science of Spider-Man in the new Spider-Man movies. However, it's interesting that Spider-Man points out that Captain America's shield doesn't even follow the laws of physics at all, because it's kind of bad science. I like the idea. If theoretically you had a material like vibranium that exerted 100% of the force that is exerted on it, that's like one of my favorite things, actually. Let's talk about the physics in the MCU. I like that concept. It's like flubber. Do you remember flubber? If you put a bouncing ball that only gains energy every time it drops, then you can make a car fly somehow. I don't know how that works, but I guess because it keeps bouncing into the air. Flubber. And I'm not talking about the Robin Williams flubber. I'm talking about the Fred McMurphy flubber. The absent-minded professor. Is that what it was called? Yeah, the absent-minded professor. Do you guys remember that? Probably not. That's an old one. Fred McMurray, my bad. This dude, he invented flubber. I'm going to watch more Spider-Mans, but I want to talk about the physics in the MCU. Cap's shield is so dope. I love that they bring back Cap's shield and the abilities it has of bouncing back, or at least releasing the same amount of energy that's exerted on it. That's why in the Avengers, it's such a great scene where Iron Man, Cap, and Thor are confronting each other because they all got to get to know each other and play well together, and that's what the Avengers is all about. The Avengers Assemble. When they're all in the woods, and Cap's like, put the hammer down. And then and Thor says, you want me to put the hammer down? I'll put the hammer down. And then he like takes the hammer and then brings it and hits Cap's shield, and it just disperses all of that energy from the hammer bouncing off the shield and just cuts down the whole forest. And then they bring that move back. It's so cool. They bring that move back in Age of Ultron, where they're fighting the dudes at Sokovia. They just hit the freaking shield and boom, they like knock down part of the forest. And of course, Cap does a double whammy in Endgame where he throws the shield and throws the hammer at it. Boom, hits it. It's such a great move when he does it against Thanos. That's my favorite scene in Avengers Endgame is when Cap finally picks up that hammer. Spoiler alert! And and he uses every power from the hammer within 30 seconds. In 30 seconds, the fight lasts 30 seconds because most fights last 30 seconds. If we've covered any bases today, it's definitely that fights are less than a minute. He's fighting Thanos, and to admit, when I first watched that movie, and then Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man are walking toward Thanos on an empty battlefield. They're just kind of walking toward him. I was like, I could see Thor fighting Thanos. I could see Iron Man putting up a fight because he already did put up a fight in Infinity War. I mean, he held his own, but, he got bested by Thanos on hand-to-hand combat. But when I was watching Cap, I was like, what Cap gonna do? What Cap gonna do? Like, poke him in the eye? What Cap gonna do? Like, punch him in the shin? What is Cap gonna do against 8-foot tall, 10-foot tall Thanos? What he gonna do? And boy, was I surprised, because they knew you were gonna think that. They knew someone was gonna be like, well, Cap is definitely outmatched, but he got the heart to fight him. Because even in Infinity War, Cap caught Thanos' hand, and Thanos was just like, wow, this dude, what this guy gonna do? Yeah, sorry about that, Dooney. I'll tell you about the spoiler. Dooney just told me that spoiler alerts should come before the spoiler. Thank you, Dooney. Spoiler alert. They usually happen like that. Let me tell you something, though. In Avengers Endgame, when he's fighting him, first Captain America in Avengers Infinity War catches Thanos' hand, and Thanos is just like, all right, dude, get out my way. Boom. And he just knocks him the F out. Probably murders him. There's a theory that Thanos just straight up murders Captain America there. But then when he turns back time, Captain America comes back to life within those, like, that next 5 minutes. Because he turns back time like Cher in the 80s. So when he does that in Endgame, when he's fighting Thanos, and he's just like unleashing every move, he's spinning, except for flying. He didn't fly with the hammer, but he does hit Thanos with the hammer. He uses lightning with the hammer. He electrifies him with the hammer. It's so freaking dope. And he also throws his own shield and then throws the hammer at the shield to create a shockwave that knocks Thanos down. And it was pretty cool to watch him beat up a bigger dude, because Cap is he's got the heart. Though Thanos is as pure as Captain America, if you think about it, because Thanos is just completely pure intentions in that he really believes in what he's doing and thinks that what he's doing is right. So therefore, he's just following his destiny. That's why Avengers Infinity War is about Thanos. And it says at the end, Thanos will return. But the physics, guys, I love the physics in the Captain America's movies when they started to get more kind of brutal, I'd say. For instance, in the beginning of Winter Soldier, when Cap invades that ship and he's just kicking these French dudes off the ship, and he's like just drop kicking them and they're flying against the walls, and then he fights that one dude. Remember that scene where he fights that dude? We're going to talk about fight scenes tomorrow. That's tomorrow, fight scenes, best fight scenes. But this is a cool, notable fight scene when he's like, the dude's like, oh, you're nothing without your shield. And then Cap's like, all right, well, let's take off my shield and my helmet and actually fight, if you think you're so tough. Because he's got pride, I guess. He's a little bit proud. He wants to fight that. So do I think Thanos was right or wrong? Swedish Moon asks. Do I think Thanos was right or wrong? I'll tell you this. That's a great, excellent question. Thank you for asking that question. I think Thanos was accurate in his assessment that if you cut the entire universe in half, that it will flatten the curve. It'll flatten the curve. We've learned about what flattens curves right now the hard way. We're trying to flatten this curve of the coronavirus by staying in, washing our hands, covering our faces when we're out, and staying 6 feet away from people and not too long in enclosed areas with other people. It's mostly spread in enclosed areas just with people talking. So just careful and be mindful of that. But Thanos was definitely accurate. There's a whole film theory episode on it, and the math works out. However, people joke, well, why didn't Thanos just make the universe twice as big or twice as abundant instead of cutting it in half? But that's where his psychopathy jumps in. That's where his craziness, that's where his pride comes in, because he said he tried to do that on his planet Titan. He tried to tell them, hey, why don't we just kill half the people and then we won't deplete Titan's resources. So this is a great discussion for the science episode. Today we're talking about science and physics and the accuracy and all that stuff. It's a great question. Thanos said, I have an idea for my planet. Why don't, it's being overrun. The atmosphere is taking a toll. People are dying. If we kill half of the people dispassionately, just get rid of them, then we can thrive again and everything can heal. Technically, yeah. But this is a really important lesson in science and in all things. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. Cap is very much the opposite in that he's like, well, we should always do the right thing no matter what the circumstances. That's why he didn't want to sign the Sokovia Accords. He said, this isn't right. We shouldn't have to wait for like a congressional vote if the planet is under attack. We should take it upon ourselves as heroes and take care of the threat without having to go through all these political hurdles, because it'll just politicize that when they have pure intentions. Thanos, in my opinion, was wrong, ultimately. But in his mind, what he was doing was going to be good, and it was going to help the universe. And in his mind, but that was definitely an Infinity War. He said, look, this is the simple thing, but it's the pride that got the best of him. Thanos doesn't he's kind of a narcissist. He's kind of a sociopath. He's like, I tried to do this on my planet and it failed. And because of that failure, he's got a certain level of pride. I wouldn't even say guilt, but he's got pride where he's like, see, I told you so. Now I'm going to fix everything. I'm going to stroke my own ego and protect myself by cutting half the universe in half. That was an Infinity War. And in Endgame, his goal changes. He's like, all right, clearly that plan doesn't work. My hubris and my pride makes me want to take over the whole universe, shred it down to one atom, and rebuild it. But Thanos, I tell you, personally, I think he's wrong. I think you should be more compassionate to others, and you should find ways to accommodate people instead of just murderizing them. Popcorn Passport, he should have doubled the resources instead of killing half the life. Exactly. Popcorn Passport says, Batrack the Leapers, St. Pierre's, and MMA ex-champ. Okay. Do Not Follow Me, I'm Serious says, the problem is that he didn't solve the problem. Wiping out half of all life means half of everything, including all livestock and plants, because they are living. Yeah, that's true. That's exactly true. They didn't show like half the trees disappearing and half the blades of grass disappearing. I was thinking they should show that. He says all living things. He just wants there to be more room to grow, more space for everything, more resources. So basically half of the people are gone and half the food. Yes, however, there's the implication that not as many people will be needing things. If you have like that curve of growth and it keeps like sort of reaching a limit, if you cut the middle part of that curve out, the curve drops down. So now you're at a new stable limit. Statistically, somehow it does work out though. Check out that episode of Film Theory. I'll put it in the chat on YouTube. Was Thanos right? And Thanos is kind of accurate when it comes down to the math, but it's a very Nazi type of theory. Thing about the Nazis, let me tell you something about the Nazis. Okay, they figured out a lot of good shit for humanity. not gonna say, look, I'm gonna get misquoted on this. I know I'm gonna get misquoted, and if this video lasts on YouTube and on Instagram, people are gonna take it totally out of context. This is what I'm saying. The Nazis discovered, I'm not gonna say good, I'm gonna say useful information. They discovered useful information in the most horrible, the wrongest, most unethical, like evil ways possible. They would do experiments on human beings. They would do all kinds of these experiments where we learned what happens. Like, now we know definitively what happens when you like tape a grenade to someone's hand and then you detonate the grenade and then you wait to see what happens to, like, this is what Dr. Mengele did, and all these horrible human beings that are like, that deservingly were put on trial and found guilty after that. Some of them got away though, which is kind of scary, but they did all these horrible experiments, but we actually learned things. But you can never reproduce these experiments, nor should you, because they're unethical and wrong. And Thanos is just like that. He's unethical. He's wrong. He's I've got the thing. Was Thanos right? Put it in the chat over on AristotleFullThrottle.com. He's wrong. Thanos is wrong, in my opinion. But in his opinion, there's no convincing him otherwise. You know, I could sit there and say, hey, if everybody just stays inside for 2 weeks, this freaking coronavirus literally cannot survive. If everyone on the planet stayed inside for 2 to 3 weeks, I know it's impossible, but if I was going around enforcing that, like, well, I'm just going to make everyone, I'm going to use my gauntlet, my infinity gauntlet, and be like, I'm going to snap my fingers and everybody's going to stay home for 3 weeks and the coronavirus will disappear. It will. Is it right? Should I force everyone to stay home? You know, that's a tough question. Yeah, probably, if we could. But does that violate their rights? Yes, definitely. So we got to be like figuring out what's right here. China is very Thanos-like. China was just like, all right, everybody, you ain't leaving your house. We're going to lock you down. We're going to arrest you and throw you in the clink if we see you on the street. Now, is that right? No. Is wearing a mask mandatory? No. It's voluntary. However, should you do it? Yes. So we've learned 2 things today. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. But just because something is not mandatory, this is the inverse. Even if it's not mandatory, you absolutely should. So there's certain things that are permitted that you shouldn't do, and there's certain things that are voluntary. So it's sort of an inverse. It's almost like a contrapositive. There are things that are voluntary that you should definitely do. But that's the problem, man. That's the problem with a lot of people. A lot of people are going to be put in this. Let's see. Popcorn Passport. The dude fought Cap. Oh, sorry, I keep trying to keep up. The French dude that fought Cap Barack. The Leaper. Oh, yeah. Cap's Rogues. Oh, that's neat. I like that guy. That guy was pretty cool. That was a pretty good fight. We're just looping back around to that fight in Captain America the Winter Soldier in the very beginning action sequence when Cap jumps out the plane without a parachute. Was he wearing a parachute? No. I'm gonna be Crossbones in the next movie. My name's Frank. I'm Crossbones. And my mask is gonna vaguely resemble a skeleton. And my protective gear is gonna have like scratches on it in the shape of a crossbone. So thematically, I will be related to my comic book character. However, I will not be a literal translation. My name's Frank. Is his name Frank in that? I forget. I feel like Frank Castle. That's the Punisher. Good golly. Dooney says, I think he should have been more selective because he might have taken away the knowledge that those people have. Oh, yeah, that's really important. Imagine half of the knowledge doctors had gone because of a snap. Yes, Dooney, You bring up a prescient and very important point. This is very true. Like when the like people burnt down that famous library. This is a really important point, actually. Do you remember here learning about in school how like 2,000 years ago there was a library in Egypt that contained like all of the knowledge up until that point, but then it was burnt down and we like lost all that information. Whether or not that's true, just think about the impact that has on everything. That's why there's movies like Stargate where they go, well, yeah, well, ancient Egypt, they had advanced technology. We just didn't know about it because it all got lost. And the ancient Egyptians used to travel between dimensions, and that's why that's where their culture comes from them aliens. Because aliens. So the ancient Egyptians, but I always say don't underestimate the power of human ingenuity. But I always love the idea that if from 2,000 years ago that they had advanced technology and then we forgot about it, and now we had to relearn it because all that information, all that knowledge is gone. Just think of the Holocaust, guys. Think of all of the... If Einstein escaped the Holocaust, Einstein escaped the Holocaust. He got away from them Nazis and came up with the theory of relativity, which has changed everything as we know it. I am talking to you based on those laws of physics that were discovered by Einstein, like the speed of light, how satellites work, everything. E equals mc squared. If Einstein was just one dude who escaped the Holocaust, think of how many people were murdered who were just as smart as Einstein. Think of how many people in like Rwanda who get murdered that are just as smart as Einstein. Think of people in like wherever, like these massacres happen, these all of that human potential gone. And we rely on ingenuity and individuality and different people offering new different stuff. Yo, I offer this. I offer fro and content. That's what I got to offer the world. What's up, Will? Will was on a work video call. He was zooming. Will, we're talking about science and movies today. Different types of movies have different types of science. All kinds of stuff. And how sometimes the science works out, sometimes it doesn't. I mentioned gravity. How's Sandra Bullock going to jump from one space station to the other when all those space stations are so far away from each other? I don't know. Maybe the movie Speed. Remember they jumped a bus across a bridge? How are you going to do that? That's another Sandra Bullock movie. How about another Sandra Bullock movie? The Bird Box. I call it The Bird Box. Bird Box was dope. You know what? It was not dope. It was a fun concept. However, it was not good. You know what? I like part of Bird Box because I got unsettled. But the fact that I could not suspend my disbelief in certain scenes like, all right, here's some bad science for you right now that they did not take attention to. Hair dye, for instance. Sandra Bullock, as beautiful as she is, I can't imagine that her hair is still jet black. And as handsome as the guy that she has those kids or she raises her kids with, the dude from Moonlight, how are we gonna keep that tight curl and that hair and like that fade going for 4 or 5 years in the fucking... Sorry, I cursed. Don't demonetize me, YouTube. In the effing the Bird Box. When they're stuck in the Bird Box for 5 years. Remember, like they're in a house, they can't look out the window like this. If I just did this straight up, I'd be like, oh, check that out. Yeah, I'm gonna go murder myself right now. I won't be back. Like that was pretty much Bird Box. Everybody just looking at the side. I feel like that right now, actually. I'm gonna throw myself out this window, being stuck inside for 2 months. Oh wow, it's beautiful, man. I'm gonna go jump right out the window right now, murderize and then my eyes are gonna turn funny. I think it's interesting that they stuck in the woods for years, keeping their blindfolds on, not looking at anything, training these kids to not open their eyes. But they still got like nice haircuts. You know what I'm saying? That dude is still jacked, and they're like gardening beans and stuff. Like they should have done something where he got real skinny and got an afro, and her hair was like grown out with like some white hairs, and his hairs too. I just think it's funny. That's some bad science right there. Is this will? There's nothing new under the sun outside of our perspective. The most egregious physics I begrudge involves launching motorcycles and cabs into helicopters and not looking at the explosions. You know what? You mentioned the motorcycles into helicopters. However, I do like that scene where they launch the cop car into a helicopter in Die Hard 4 with a Vengeance. Die Hard with a Vengeance. I think that stunt is totally cool. He takes the billy club, puts it on the gas pedal, and then puts it into drive, and then the cop car flies up into the helicopter. That was the greatest use of a car crashing into a helicopter ever. But yeah, motorcycles crashing into helicopters. For instance, Terminator 2. That was a T-1000. He drives his motorcycle up the stairs, which he really does. I mean, they kind of do that stunt. And then he drives that motorcycle out the window, crashes it into the helicopter, grabs onto the helicopter, smashes his way into the thing, and he says, "Get out," because that's what you say when you commandeer a vehicle and you are a Terminator. You say, "Get out, get out, get out, get out." Arnold in The Sixth Day. Remember that one where they clone him? That was fun. There was the cloning technology, and that was pretty dumb. Popcorn Passport does bring up a good point that the demon Cthulhu is looking at. He's the one that makes you insane if you look at him. So they're probably thinking that Bird Box, there was the Cthulhu demon outside. It's interesting. I wonder, because there was a scene in that too where the one girl was like, her sister said, "Oh, Mom. Oh, hey, Mom." And then she starts walking toward the thing and then murders herself. It's all straight up The Happening. They're like, "You want me to go outside and kill myself?" And he's all, no. You know, because Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. I feel like if you put Marky Mark in that role, it's like the same role. If you replaced Moonlight Dude with Marky Mark, it's like the same role. But Moonlight Dude was fine, except Machine Gun Kelly was in that movie, and I'm like, and the whole movie I was like, isn't that Tommy Lee? And then I had to like rethink my brain had to recalculate who Machine Gun Kelly is, and not that he's not Tommy Lee. I like that movie, the Motley Crue movie about Tommy Lee. I mean, about the Motley Crues. The science around Superman is simple but effective because all you need to know is that he only requires the sun to survive. That's why he can survive in space without oxygen. Yes, that's a good point, Dooney. I do like that. I like that Superman builds a world where you just go, well, he's an alien, and the sun charges up all of his cells, so he's got basically the density and the power because his cells and his muscles are so dense. And they're all supercharged with solar energy that you can't even cut this dude. You can't even cut him. Jeff Goldblum ain't even going to be able to kick him in the ribs and hurt him. Well, I've got about 90 seconds left on my Instagram feed, but you guys can jump over to AristotleFullThrottle.com and continue to chat. Also, like the video if you guys are on AristotleFullThrottle.com. Like. Share. We're all here together every day at noon. Let's make it a habit. Let's make this a club. I enjoy you guys. You guys awesome insight, and I appreciate the different angles that you have and your different takes. For instance, Will's take on The Happening is that it's pure garbage. Yeah, it's pretty pure garbage. It's like the purest of garbages. The idea was pretty good. I do like that scene where the guy gets off the riding mower and gets under it. They get pretty creative with the suicides on that. If you were just completely dispassionately like, "Oh, I'm going to kill myself now. I'll be right back. Actually, I won't. See you later." Actually, I won't. That's hilarious. But you guys are fantastic. Jump over to AristotleFullThrottle.com if you want to continue the discussion. I'll be on there for about 5 more minutes. And thank you guys so much for joining me on Instagram Live. I'm Aristotle Full Throttles, your bro in the know with the fro. And I'll see you tomorrow. Share story. Cool, guys. Thank you so much also on YouTube. This has been a lively discussion. I mean, we barely scratched the surface, but tomorrow we're going to talk about some dope-ass fight scenes. Some cool fight scenes, your favorite fight scenes, karate fight scenes, wrestling fight scenes. We can even talk about the fight in They Live between Keith David and David Keith. Imagine David Keith and Keith David were in a movie together. That would be hilarious. That'd be so confusing. The story of Keith and David, starring David Keith and Keith David. I would love to watch that. Yes, please, Will. Continue watching, watch the playback, and comment. I appreciate it. Yeah. I was just catching up on some of these chat room comments. Yeah, Roddy Piper, man. Rowdy Roddy Piper. He was one of my favorites when I was a kid. He just had like a nice, chill vibe. He was like a cool dude. He came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and he's all out of bubblegum. So in that order, he just skipped right over the bubblegum step, and he came to kick ass. I like that movie a lot. It really is if you watch They Live, it could be an allegory of what's going on right now. There's some people walking around with that coronavirus right now. Some people going, hey, you're taking away my rights. I should walk around without a mask. But, guys, you're infringing on other people's rights if you're walking around without a mask. You're not understanding how science is. I was talking about this earlier. If you go to the vet's office, if you go to the doctor's office, if you go to any sensible place that has an actual working understanding of science and how it's working, notice how they behave. They got the mask, the face shield, the gloves, and they're all very like, hand me the thing, hand it through the window, and then they wash everything off. It's because procedurally, they're taking the actual correct level of response. What the public is being asked to do is the bare minimum. Cover your mouth and nose and stay 6 feet away. That is the bare minimum. And we're not able to do that. Yeah, They Live gonna come up every episode. We're gonna talk about They Live forever because John Carpenter is a living legend, ladies and gentlemen. John Carpenter is a musician, filmmaker, has so many great comments on society with his horror movies that I think it's really important that we recognize a dude like that. But that fight between Keith David and David Keith, man. I mean, Rowdy Roddy Piper. That fight, I was talking earlier about that fight between Jeff Goldblum. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go on Twitter and watch the Jeff Goldblum fight. It's not really Jeff Goldblum. It's a dude who looks like Jeff Goldblum. He's a Jeff Goldblum looking MFer. But he karate fights this guy. And decisive win by Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum really does win that fight. Most fights only last 30 seconds. That fight is no exception. However, if you are Keith David and Rowdy Roddy Piper, your fight gonna last 5.5 minutes. That fight gonna keep going. You're gonna get so tired that you're both gonna quit. You're both gonna quit the fight and just be like, all right, we're done fighting. I think it's really funny because I think there's a literal suplex. I forget the move, but I think it's a suplex. It's an inversion. You got Rowdy Piper got his head like this, and he lifts Keith David up, slams him down. One of my favorite celebrity sightings was Keith David at the Hollywood Farmers Market. He was very animated, and I wanted to fight him for 5 minutes. I was like, Keith David, let's wrestle for like a prolonged period where we'll both get extremely exhausted and we'll just both want to quit because we will both have proved neither one of us is right. Oh yeah, dude, Will, you saw the fight. That rib kick, man. Yeah, he tapped out. The rib kick, Yeah, let's just finish up on that fight because that fight was, it's pretty spectacular. I'll tell you what my overall impression of it is. I feel like the dude, nobody deserves violence. I don't condone violence. I don't think that violence is a good thing. I think violence only belongs in movies as a symbolic representation of catharsis, of how we should want to see things happen, poetic justice. We want to see this happen. Star Wars to me is beautiful because there are wars should only happen in movies. War shouldn't be a real thing. It should be a fantasy that we can live out in a movie and not actually live out in reality. I don't think we need to anymore. So that being said, the dude in the Jeff Goldblum fight that got his ribs kicked, he had it coming. Apparently he was like disparaging to women. He was saying some crap, and then he threw the first punches at Jeff. He basically instigated the fight. I'm gonna call the tall dude in that fight Jeff. Jeff was like, all right, you want to fight me? I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to protect myself against you. So then the dude came after Jeff, and Jeff does these spin heel kick right to the face, gives him some like uppercuts, and then while the dude is turned around now, he admits defeat. He puts his arm up and he says, hang on, hang on. So this is where the fight gets weird to me, because I'm like, Jeff gets in a kick right to the ribs, right to the body, breaks like a couple ribs, clearly breaks those ribs. It was unnecessary. Obviously, all fights are unnecessary, but that last bit was unnecessary. But at the same time, you can make the argument that Jeff lost his glasses halfway through the fight, and you could see that he can't really see, so like he touches the guy to see how far away he is. So I don't know how bad his vision is, but that dude had his arm in the air, so maybe he could argue in court that he saw an arm in the air, and he wasn't wearing his glasses, so he still thought there was a threat, so he neutralized the threat by kicking the dude right in the ribs. Ooh. Yeah, he does a crazy kick right to the side, and you just see that dude's whole side just cave in. You're like, uh-oh. That's like 2 ribs at least. And you can't do nothing for a broken rib. You just got to sit down and cry for like 3 months trying to breathe. Ben Affleck was the Batman, and he had the best fight. Oh yeah, I was talking about that fight the other day on the other show on Monday. Was that yesterday? Dang, or maybe Friday. I don't know what days are. What is time? What is even time anymore? It was a lo-fi indie rock version of the Bruce Lee Kareem fight. Yes, dude, I was talking about that earlier. Rewatched the replay. Will I was saying that he was entering the dragon on that one. But yeah, Game of Death is actually the correct that is the correct one. That movie was the basis for that movie was the basis for the video game Kung Fu. I am absolutely certain. You got to go into a house and go up the levels and fight a different boss on each level. That's how you do it, Bruce Lee said. Bruce Lee said, I'm going to make a movie. You're going to go up each flight of stairs, and on each flight of stairs, you're going to land and fight a more difficult person. But Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was dope. Dude still practices Jeet Kune Do and was one of Bruce Lee's students. Straight up one of his students. I love that picture. I love when he put that footprint on Bruce Lee's chest just to show him. I love that Bruce Lee trained someone like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, whose physicality is unexpected for a Kung Fu guy, but he's like a high-level Kung Fu, high-level Jeet Kune Do fighter. The cool thing about that is that, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is a legit martial artist, and Bruce Lee wanted to show that any body type, any type of person could do his art and share his art with the world. And for that, that's we're all grateful. And it's really sad. Maybe we could talk about people gone too soon and talk about Brandon Lee being one of the only survivors at the time. One of the only 13 people who knew his father's art at the time, who could probably teach it. And another one is Bruce Lee's brother teaches it. but I think Bruce Lee's brother or his brother-in-law, I forget. But Bruce Lee's daughter's still around, and I think she also practices it. But it's a lost art form. Jeet Kune Do basically is a freestyle form of kung fu, and it literally means freestyle because Bruce Lee wanted to break free from the whole concept of a very formal way of fighting, and he wanted to combine all different styles of fighting. Now I guess it's more like mixed martial arts and stuff like that, but Bruce Lee kind of broke a lot of conventions and created his own style, which is dope. But Ichabod Crane Kick, oh dude, you need to tweet that at that meme. But yeah, man, this show is dedicated to those 3 cracked ribs. And Jeff Goldblum's glasses. Man, all that stuff got broke. They got broke. You guys want to see someone get his ribs broken? It's brutal. It hurts inside. It hurt me. I'm still feeling it. But if you guys want to go watch that, let me know what you think on that fight. I think the fight was valid and just up until the guy surrendered. But it's arguable that Jeff Goldblum character, the Ichabod Crane Kick, it's arguable that he wanted to neutralize the threat and get away by giving one last body kick to the body to make sure that the dude was not going to come back after him. So you can argue that. And it's hard to fully blame him. However, I don't know. So you see someone surrendering, don't let your anger get the best of you. Don't become the Hulk. What we want is empathy, compassion, and critical thinking. This is what will help the world be a better place. This is what will help us all be smarter. Just be aware of other people and aware of your actions and how they affect other people. Try not to kick them in the ribs. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. Only kick people in the ribs if if they're coming at you and if there's no other way to get them to see your point. Yeah, how much for just some ribs? Yeah. Yeah, someone got to put that. Willie, please put that clip underneath that underneath that meme. Just how much is just one rib? Oh, good golly. Yeah, because the guy's whole side caves in and he walks away and puts his arm on them. He takes a breather. I gotta say, the thing that was most concerning for me watching that fight was how come neither of them were wearing a mask? And with that, guys, thank you for joining me. I almost did that like Chevy Chase. Live from New York, it's Saturday. I like his little twitchiness. Anyway, I'm Aristotle, full throttle. Your bro in the know with the fro.